Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hogue, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
Excuse me. I'm AJ Hogue, the author of Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. Join my VIP program. You know what to do. I teach you to speak English fluently, powerfully, confidently, effortlessly. But you must join, you must commit to my VIP program. Commit to my VIP program now at effortlessenglishclub.com. Go to effortlessenglishclub.com, the website. At the top, you'll see there's a little yellow button to click about the VIP program. Join and commit. You will succeed at effortlessenglishclub.com, effortlessenglishclub.com. Welcome, welcome. Live on YouTube today. Hope you enjoyed yesterday's interview. Or for me, it was the same day. It was today. It was early this morning. I interviewed Matt from MIA, which is Mass Immersion Approach, right? So he has a website and a whole program that is focused on language learning. And in his case, he is an American who learned Japanese to a very, very high level, and now he's learning Chinese. I think he's more just starting with Chinese. But anyway, he has a lot of very interesting ideas about language learning, some very good ideas about language learning that very much fit my ideas of language teaching in English and my experiences with my students, with you all. It's not surprising. I was influenced quite a lot by Dr. Stephen Krashen and his work, and then Dr. J. Marvin Brown and a few others, and so was Matt. And therefore, we have a lot of similar ideas, but he has also some pretty cool ideas, and I want to follow up on one of those ideas today. We're going to talk about pronunciation today. So today, talking about pronunciation, how to improve your pronunciation. And I have a pronunciation course that uses the technique that Matt talked about, shadowing. But I quite liked also his idea about the parent. And I've used this idea as well, where I've told you all to, maybe pick your favorite actor or something like that. And I still think it's a good idea. But he had some good points about choosing like a podcaster or someone, you can choose me if you want, that talks a lot with no editing. So it's a more natural speech. That the one thing with movies, you'll get very good pronunciation if you copy actors in movies. I mean, there's no doubt they pronounce, if you choose wisely, they pronounce very, very, very clearly. And so it will help a lot. But there is a benefit, I think he's right, of choosing someone who's less professional, where there's less editing or no editing, because then you get the full natural, including the pauses and the broken sentences and sometimes some grammar mistakes. And then with pronunciation, like I'm going when I'm thinking sometimes. Just these little things that you often don't see in a movie. They try to avoid those things. But real people in the real world actually do these things all the time. And your speech will sound, and your pronunciation will sound so much more natural and more native-like when you really copy these things. So we'll talk about this in a minute. What else? Anyway, so yesterday, it seems like you all understood the interview quite well, so I don't need to do a follow-up, but I will invite Matt to come back again. I'm quite interested in his ideas about language learning. I might even do one of his coaching sessions and talk to him about my own Japanese study, because there are some specific things with Japanese, especially with the reading, that are fairly difficult and unique. I might like to talk to him more about that. So anyway, I know you all are not learning Japanese, so when we interview him again, when he comes back, I'll try to ask your questions, and of course on general language learning, especially for you, of course, English learning. I don't know if some of you noticed, but at the end of that interview, I was a little, we say spacey. Spacey means kind of like your concentration's not so good, because for me, it was 6 a.m. And I will get transcripts for all of those. That will take a few weeks, couple weeks. Then we will add the recordings of all of those movie lessons, the entire movie The Matrix, except the action scenes, but all the talking parts will be added to the VIP area. So VIP members, you will get that so you can learn all the vocabulary and the phrases and everything, the idioms, the slang from that movie. Our next movie will be Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire is our next movie club movie. We'll probably take 1 week off, take a 1 week break, give you a chance, maybe watch the whole movie just to get a feeling. You could even watch it with subtitles in your own language, just so you kind of understand the whole thing. Then we'll watch it, of course, piece by piece, scene by scene. We'll go through the whole movie and learn all the vocab. And I know it's going to be a lot more vocab than The Matrix, because Jerry Maguire has a lot more talking. It's more of a drama, romantic comedy. So there's a lot more conversation in Jerry Maguire. And for us, that's good, right? That's really good because that means there's more language. There's more English. So we get a lot more English from Jerry Maguire than The Matrix. The Matrix is more of an action movie, so less talking. Okay, now let's just talk about pronunciation and these ideas of pronunciation. So these two ideas. Number one is shadowing, which I have talked about. And Matt brought it up again. Excuse me, I'm thirsty. So shadowing is when you are listening to an audio in English. You can listen to this podcast, for example. And as you're hearing it, as you hear me speak, you then, maybe like a half-second delay, but as fast as you can, you hear what I say, and then you say exactly what I'm saying, basically at the same time. So you're saying everything I say at the same time. Of course, you'll be a little behind me. So you're having to listen and speak at the same time, which is not easy. It's challenging for sure. Not only are you speaking, you're trying to copy me exactly. So you copy my pauses exactly. So if I pause dramatically, like this, then you, as you shadow, would try to copy that exactly. You would also pause dramatically, like this. Okay, so it's not just listen and repeat. Listen and repeat, you're just focusing on just the words. But with shadowing, you're really trying to get everything. Of course, the words, but you're trying to get the pauses the same as the speaker. You're trying to get the exact sounds of pronunciation, even the emotion that you hear in the voice. I recommend, if you're watching a video, even copy the physical movements, the facial movements, right? The facial expressions of the speaker. So if they do something with their eyes and they kind of do their eyes tight, or they, anything they do with their face, copy that too. And you can even copy the physical gestures, like how they're using their hands, for example, while they're speaking. Of course, I'm exaggerating right now, but you see what I mean. And the idea is, the mindset is that you pretend you are an actor, a professional actor, and you are trying to be the person you're listening to. You're trying to, if you have a video, great, you can do the physical part, but with an audio, it's just the sound. But you could think like you're a voice actor, and you are trying to imitate. Okay, so it's not just repeat. It's not repeat, it's imitate. You're imitating the audio. And the key point about shadowing, why it's a little difficult, is you don't pause. There's no pausing, right? Now, that is one technique. You can play one sentence, pause, and then imitate that sentence. And maybe in the beginning, that's a good first step for pronunciation practice, where you pause, everything goes more slowly. You can really focus on just one sentence or one phrase at a time. But of course, real speech just keeps going and going and going. That's why shadowing is probably better overall, because it's real speech. In real speech, you can't pause every 2 seconds and think carefully about the pronunciation. You have to do it very fast. So the shadowing helps with that fluent pronunciation, where the words are coming out at normal speed and you're imitating. Now, so all of that's great, and it works very well, and there are a lot of people who talk about this. There's the guy who sort of created that, or popularized at least this technique, Alexander Argeles, I believe is his name. He's someone who speaks many different languages. I can't remember how many, but, one of these guys who speaks like 15, 20 languages. He speaks a lot, and this is probably his number one technique, certainly his most famous technique. He does lots of shadowing. It's the main way. He uses it for language learning in general, not just pronunciation. But Matt was talking about it for pronunciation, and in my pronunciation course, we use it for pronunciation, shadowing technique. Now, the other thing we were talking about yesterday that Matt mentioned, and I agree with him about it, is that when you focus on pronunciation, don't copy everybody, right? So he's saying that don't have 10 speakers and you're trying to copy their pronunciation, all of them, because everybody has a little bit different pronunciation. Like Matt, his pronunciation is a little different than mine. We both have a very standard American accent, but there's some ways he speaks, some phrases, some things that'll be a little different than the way I speak. Or Steve Kaufman, who's Canadian, but he has basically a standard North American accent also. You could copy him. And the way he pauses, the little fine, small points of pronunciation will be a little different than mine, a little different than Matt's, a little different than someone else's. And so the idea is, again, like an actor, instead of trying to copy 10 people or 20 people, or even 5 people, choose one. And Matt calls this your language parent. Your language parent, where the idea is like a baby or a child has a parent, 2 parents really, and they're copying just these 2 people, right? The baby's not listening to 100 different speakers each day. Most days, the baby's listening to 2 parents only. And usually, it's the mom most of all, because the mom is probably the one that's spending the most time with the baby. So it's kind of trying to follow the same natural pattern where you choose one person, you like their pronunciation, their English pronunciation, and you try to copy their pronunciation exactly. So, you certainly could do me if you wanted to do a standard American accent. You could certainly use my podcasts, my pronunciation course, my lessons. I've got so much in terms of audios and videos. There's plenty that you could copy me, but try to copy exactly how I speak, exactly like you're an actor. And you do this for, 6 months or a year or something like that. It's up to you, but you want to try to copy exactly. Maybe you're younger, or maybe you're whatever. You want to speak British English. And so, fine, you don't want to copy me. It's okay. Find somebody else. But the idea is you pick just one person for your pronunciation practice. For your just general listening, general learning, of course, listen to a lot. You can listen to British. You can listen to Australian. You can listen to American. Many people, old, young, it doesn't matter. It's fine. But just for your pronunciation practice, your shadowing focus, choose your one language parent and focus on just this one person and try to sound exactly like them. This is the idea. This one person. And that this is more powerful than trying to copy a lot of people. Because then you can really, 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 really carefully study and listen to this one person and really notice their pronunciation and really, really, really copy them exactly. I think it's a great idea. And as I mentioned last week in a show and also yesterday talking to Matt, I did this exact same thing with public speaking. Where I said, for a while, I copied Tony Robbins. Basically tried to copy him exactly as a public speaker for a while, probably 6 months. But it helped me a lot. It made a huge, huge, huge improvement in my public speaking ability. And then later, I did choose like another person. I started watching other people too, and then I would just copy little things about them. And then finally, I developed my own style, and I have my own style now. And so it's the same thing. You won't do this forever. Maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year. Okay, and yes, maybe for a while you speak exactly like I do. But then your pronunciation is excellent, then you relax, and then you will naturally develop your own style, and you will sound like you. So don't worry about that. It's a temporary training exercise to copy somebody like this very intensely. Okay, it's not permanent, but it will help you improve so much. And this is basically modeling. It's what they call in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, they call this modeling, where you're choosing one person who's excellent, who's really good at what you want to do, really good at the skill you want, and you copy them exactly. You imitate them like an actor. You try to imitate how they think, how they, in this case, how they speak, how they move their face, how they use their voice, everything. And this will help your pronunciation tremendously. And exaggerate it. Really exaggerate it. Do it very strongly. This will help a lot. All right. So that's the point about pronunciation. I'll get to live comments in a second. The next point, again, just to remind you, we're going to do a new movie. The new movie will be Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire with Tom Cruise. I think it's another 90s movie. Made in the 90s. It's about a sports agent who is just focused on money. And he kind of wakes up. It's a little bit like he gets red-pilled a little about life, right? He wakes up and he realizes that there other things are more important than money. He realizes he's missing so much of life because he's too focused on just money, work. And the whole movie then is about the process, his journey of waking up and finding out what is more important in life, and then trying to change his life and having some pain and some problems because he does make a change. So it's not always easy. He has challenges, but overall, it's a very, very, very positive movie. And it's got a lot of famous lines in it that are still famous, and lots of good English, lots of good phrases, idioms, lots and lots of good conversations. It's a well-written movie. The writing in the movie is quite good. So I think you'll enjoy it. That'll be Jerry Maguire. And that's our big update. Business English, some of you have asked about that. It is basically ready. Just give me another, probably about, what is today, September 10th? So probably another week, and then I will start sending out some emails for the Business English Conversations course. So those of you interested in Business English and that course, thank you for being patient. Coming very, very, very soon. And you can buy it now full price if you want to, but just watch your email. Okay, let's get into the questions and comments. Abraham says, thank you for doing 2 shows in the same day. I thought you'll take a break. No worries. I'm awake. I was sleepy this morning. Unfortunately, because I'm in Asia and I'm usually interviewing people in America. So it just seems like it's always, 5 a.m. or something like that. That's always convenient, the best time. So it means I have to stay up all night long. I mean, I stay up most nights anyway, but that's usually when I go to sleep. But it's okay. I really am enjoying the interviews. They're quite interesting. Dr. Mario says hi from Argentina. Hello. Brazil, Marcia, nice to see you. Good to see you, Lisa. All right, let's see. Questions or comments. Kabdi says, my name is Kabdi. I want to be rich. In some examples, what to do. Well, you'll like our new book club. Although the new book club, as I've said in the introduction, It's not really about being rich. It's about being financially independent, which is not the same, really. I think when most people think rich, they're thinking large amounts of money. They're thinking luxury. They're thinking, huge houses, Ferraris, flying first class or private jets, that kind of thing. But when we talk about financially independent, it just means you don't need to work for money. You don't need to work for money. That's what financial independence, or sometimes we'll say financial freedom. But those two phrases mean you don't have to work for money. You have enough money from investments, from a business, from something, to live comfortably, decently, without working. You don't have to work. You can work if you want, but you don't have to. Now some people think you have to be rich to do that, but you don't. Okay, in fact, I'd say most people who are financially independent are not rich. They're not living in huge houses. They're not driving Ferraris. They're living fairly simple lives, but they have great financial freedom. So it's important to keep those two ideas separate because they're not exactly the same thing. Yes, many rich people are also financially free. They don't have to work. And some financially free people are also rich. But it's not the same. Because some rich people have to work. They have a large amount of debt. And actually, if they stop working, they will lose their house. They'll lose their car. They'll lose everything. So they may appear very rich, but they're not financially independent, really. So it's very important to keep those ideas clear in your mind, what they actually mean. Nasser said Matt's pronunciation was very clear. He had the ability to explain in a simple way. Yes, he does. He's got great ideas, and he's very good at explaining them. Hama says, can you tell me some useful movies for pre-intermediate level? I would say The Matrix might be a good one because there wasn't too much. It wasn't too difficult. I don't know if you all agree, but my feeling is that The Matrix, the English, was not too difficult, right? As we went through it, seemed like you all were able to understand fairly easily. I think that Jerry Maguire will be more difficult. I already know the opening scene, the very first scene of Jerry Maguire, is a little difficult to explain because I used to use that movie in my classes in San Francisco. And there's a lot of slang, a lot of things. One of the difficulties of Jerry Maguire is that some of it is very connected to American culture, specifically American sports culture. So you have to understand some of the idioms that are connected to, for example, American football. And the rest of the world doesn't know about that, except Canada. But nobody else understands American football, so I have to explain all of that during the movie, because one of the main characters in the movie is an American football player. There's a lot of scenes that are connected to American football. So, but it's good because then we'll get to learn a little bit about that culture too. So it's a nice movie. But Hama, to answer your question, maybe The Matrix. Okay, so Amar says, how can I improve listening skill because the speech is very fast? Well, this is common. There's if we kind of compare our brains to a computer or language learning, we kind of have two things that we have to deal with listening. Number one is just knowing, right? Like knowing the words. You know what the words mean. So whatever vocabulary I'm using, you know it. Like if I gave you a vocab test, you would understand the words. So that's number one. But also number two, we can call it processing speed. Like, a computer has a processor. It's how fast the computer can work. Well, it's kind of like our brain too. We also have this. So there's how fast can your brain understand? Maybe you know, right? You know every word. But if I speak very, very, very quickly, it's too fast for your brain to process, to understand. So there's the speed and there are the words. And they're kind of, you have to work on both, right? I mean, of course, if you don't know the words, then you're not going to understand. But after you know the words, you still have to improve your speed. So how do you do it? Well, lots and lots of listening, and of course, maybe gradually listening to faster and faster things. So like my speaking speed is not very fast. In fact, I know some of you who are more advanced say, "Oh, AJ, you speak very slowly." And I'd say my speaking speed is fairly slow. It's natural. I'm not trying to speak slowly, but I naturally speak more slowly than, for example, Tony Robbins. Many of you have noticed Tony Robbins speaks very quickly naturally. So, you might try listening to some very fast audios. Try listening to Tony Robbins. You probably will not understand a lot, okay? It will feel very, very fast to you, but you'll start training your brain to speed up with English. Then when you come back and you listen to me, my speech will suddenly seem, oh, AJ's not so fast. So you kind of have to push yourself a little faster audios sometimes. You'll do it. It'll get better. Even at the beginner level of Japanese, for me, I've noticed that that's maybe the first thing improving for me. My vocabulary is still so small, but I do notice that I can pick out words now faster, right? Which is useful. It's good. It's kind of an important step. Yeah, like Effortless Fitness here says, don't just repeat, imitate. Important word there, imitate. Henry says, is it important to copy the face? I don't know if important is the word, but I think it's helpful. I think that copying everything, the tone of the voice, the emotion, the use of the face, because the use of the face affects pronunciation. Especially the mouth, of course. So yeah, I would do it all. I would copy everything. Yeah, so Abradamani says, AJ, I listen to you daily. Learn your ideas. When it comes to shadowing technique, I use Luke's English podcast because I admire British pronunciation. And say that's fine. Luke's got nice pronunciation, standard British accent. So if you prefer British, find a British podcaster. If you prefer Australian, find an Aussie, or if you want New Zealand English, find someone from New Zealand. Even as Matt was saying, even within a country, there are differences. So we have, you can find lots of different Americans who sound different, right? There are regional accents. So there's New York, there's a Southern accent, kind of more of a Midwest, West Coast, Minnesota, kind of the North, they have their own accent. So there are regional accents. And also just, individuals have their different accents or styles of speaking. And you want to find someone that you like, obviously. If you're going to copy them, if you're going to imitate them, you want to like how they speak. You want to like the sound of their voice, the way they speak. So choose someone that you will enjoy copying. Like Effortless Fitness says, I only copy you. Well, that's nice. Yeah, now see, this is a nice idea. Abraham says, I use VLC. That's a software program for video, I believe. I make the speed a little bit slower. It's easier for me to speak with the actor at the same time. Right, you can do that. I think you can do it on YouTube with some videos as well. Some MP3 players, you can do this. So you can, if the speaking is too fast for you right now, then you can slow it down a little bit. Just don't slow it down where it sounds strange, right? Where they go, rah, rah, rah. It sounds unnatural. You don't want to copy that. But if you can, I think there are programs that will slow the speed without changing the sound, the pitch. That's the best if you can do that. And, you can also do the opposite. If you want a challenge, you want to work on speaking faster, you can make the speed a little higher. So you could use one of my audios and increase the speed, and just for challenging yourself and working on fluency. Okay, cool. Now, when I wanted to talk to Matt about this question. So we'll talk when he comes back. We'll ask him, because this is a very cool topic. The long time silent. This is called the silent period in language learning. The silent period. It can improve my listening skill, of course, but I wonder, will it improve, or can it improve my speaking skill? Right. So the theory is, and according to the theory, and according to a decent amount of experience of different people, yes, the idea is that this silent period, and what this means is you wait to speak. I mean, especially as a beginner, you focus just on listening, even until you're an intermediate level. And you don't speak at all. You only listen and maybe read. So it's 100% input only. You don't try to speak at all. And the idea is, and Matt kind of mentioned this a bit, Matt followed this himself. The idea is that the problem is, if you try to speak early, you will create bad habits because you're not ready. You can't really hear the language correctly yet. You can't really hear the correct pronunciation yet. You really don't know naturally, intuitively, the grammar yet. You don't really feel the grammar. You might study some rules, but you're going to forget them when you try to talk. So because you're not ready, you're going to speak very badly, and you'll create these habits. You'll start to do it again and again, and this can create a lot of bad habits of speaking. This is the idea. And the idea of the silent period is that you give your brain a huge amount of real input from native speakers. So your brain will have a huge amount of listening time with perfect pronunciation from native speakers, with the natural grammar from native speakers. So that when you finally speak later, you have, this kind of like database, right? You have all of this in your brain, and you will eventually speak much better because of the silent period. Your pronunciation will be much better because of the silent period. Your spoken grammar will be better and more natural because of the silent period. So this is the idea. I know Matt is a proponent of this, and he believes in this and encourages this and used it himself. I mentioned the AUA program, the Thai language program down in Bangkok at AUA. Quite famous for this. They also do this. Especially, they do it specifically because of pronunciation, because Thai is very difficult to pronounce for Americans and Europeans. So it's a good, but that's your short answer. I'd like to talk to him more and get his ideas about it, because it's a very interesting topic. And it's a topic that, you're going to find a lot of disagreement, because you'll find people online that, there's another group of people online, language learners. Often it's people who are learning a lot of languages, like they're learning 4, 5, 6, 8 languages. And they will say the exact opposite. They will say you should talk as much as you can from the beginning. And their reason is that it will make you, it will give you that speaking practice immediately. You immediately will begin to connect with other people, to have conversations. It will make you less shy. And all these things are true. I think it's really more like short-term versus long-term. I think that speaking immediately or speaking soon, early, has short-term benefits, but the silent period has better long-term benefits. And it's just a matter of, the people who like the silent period are people who want to reach a very, very high level. I've noticed this too. People who want to sound almost like native speakers. So people like Matt, the directors of the AUA program down in Thailand, these people who are trying to get near native, so a very, very, very high level of pronunciation and fluency, they are the ones who will use the silent period, long silent periods usually. And the group that likes to speak quickly, they're not trying to get so high. They're trying to get to basic fluency, right? Where they can communicate basically, travel around, have normal conversations, and then learn another language, and then learn another language, and then learn another language. So they're not trying to go quite as high with one language. They're trying to get to like a high intermediate level, and then jump to a new one, and then jump to a new one. So there's not a right answer. It's just, what do you want to do, right? Do you want to reach a very, very, very high level in one or a few languages, or do you want to speak lots of them? Yeah, imitation, Usama says, I think imitation with a lot of repetition is more important. What do you think? I think in this area of pronunciation, we need a huge amount of repetition. Just like babies get, where they're getting fairly simple phrases and sentences, and they're repeating them a huge amount of times. Julia says, you are my model, AJ. Your accent and pronunciation are excellent. Well, thank you. You can certainly use me if you want to. Oh, Nunu says, I want to know about the pronunciation of similar words such as to, T-O, to, T-W-O, and to, T-O-O. It's exactly the same. There's no difference. It's the same exact pronunciation. There and there, right? T-H-E-R-E, T-H-E-I-R. It's exactly the same pronunciation. Only the spelling is different. It's one of those weird things in English that... So these are called, what are they called? Homonyms, I believe, that have different spelling, but it's exactly the same pronunciation. There's no difference at all. Larissa, I should have asked Matt about this. Do you think listening to English during sleep helps studying English? No, I don't think so. There are a few people, like Matt mentioned this guy, Kazumoto, who was learning Japanese. And I think that guy would listen to Japanese while he was sleeping. But honestly, I just don't think it does anything, except maybe interrupt your sleep a little bit. I say just have a nice quiet sleep. You just wake up. When you wake up immediately in the morning, you can turn on English. So there's no need to do it while you're asleep. Yeah, well, Sam Poland, he shows why pronunciation, his comment is really telling us why pronunciation is important. He said, I speak very good English, but my pronunciation is terrible. So he's got great fluency, probably great vocabulary, maybe even excellent grammar, but his pronunciation is bad. So when I went to the UK, I was talking constantly, but people could not understand me. And that is why I think pronunciation is more important than grammar. Because if your pronunciation is terrible, people will not understand you. No understanding means no communication. It means that's the whole point of the language, right? Is communication. Bad grammar, people can probably still understand you. If you use the wrong verb tense, most people still understand the basic idea. So you can still have communication with bad grammar, but you can't have communication with terrible pronunciation. They just don't understand you. So it is very important. Pronunciation is indeed important. Sam, you're right about that. But don't worry, Sam. The good news, Sam, is all these other things are good. So you just have this one more piece, this last piece that you need to improve. Doesn't need to be perfect, right? But just make some improvement and then you'll be fine. So Sam, yeah, no worries. And thanks for sharing that. I hear the baby's voice. How are they? They're fine. They're doing very well. My babies are fine. They're doing great. Mom's taking care of them right now. They're growing. Yeah, like Elena says, I like this technique. I'm learning with your Power English course. After I listen to a mini story at least 5 to 6 times, then I do the shadowing very easily for 5 to 6 times more. It works a lot. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great thing to do. You can use this with any of the courses. You can really use it with any audio at all, where you can first just listen to understand, and then you can go back and repeat it again. And when you're repeating, you can do the shadowing. And it kind of makes it keeps that same audio interesting, gives you a new challenge. Yeah, like Cleafy, this is why I'm doing the interviews. Listening to real conversations between native speakers helps a lot to be fluent and correct in choosing the right pronunciation. Right, so that's, I think, another benefit of these interviews. Most people are native speakers, not all of them, but they're all very good English speakers. So you can listen to a little more interaction, a little more natural interaction between myself and someone else. Okay, Carmelo with a good question. I understand. Hi, Jay. I understand. Carmelo Vevo. Understand British and American accents. When speaking, should I use just one or should I use both? Choose one, I think. Both might sound weird. So I recommend just choose one. And indeed, like we're talking about today, choose one person even to copy, to imitate. But American or British, I think. A mixture of the two would probably sound a little weird. Yeah, Olivia Solomon says, I teach British diction at school, so I really need to get acclimatized to that diction. That's fine. Yeah, there's some countries where they focus very much. I think Malaysia's like this also, where they focus very much, former British colonies, where you're getting the British accents, the British spelling of certain words and things, and it's totally fine. I joke about American English being better, but the truth is they're all fine, and Australian's fine too. And Dalal says, I listened to the conversation between you and Matt. It was interesting and full of useful information. Thank you. I found it interesting too. Well, here's a follow-up question about like two and two. How can I get the different meanings between words when they have the same pronunciation? Well, I think this is true for most languages, have these kind of words, right, that have many meanings. Japanese certainly does. And so what do? You know it from the context, right? From the situation. Like if I said, I went to the store. Well, it means to, T-O, right? Because the other ones don't make sense. I went to the store, T-O-O. I went also the store. Well, if you listen to enough English, that's not even a correct sentence. It sounds weird. And also, I went to the store, T-W-O. It also is not, we don't speak that way. So there's only one possible spelling for that sentence, T-O. So it's just like this. It's just the situations. I think a lot of languages have these kind of words that they're also, that can have different spellings, or maybe it's just the same word, the same spelling, but it can have lots of different meanings. There are few of them in Japanese where I'm like, I do find it a little confusing so far. It takes time to figure it out because I hear the word and I'm like, I'm trying to translate it in my head, but I'm using the wrong meaning. So it just takes time, more and more time, where you get used to it and you realize from the situation, it becomes obvious. Yeah, Namaz, this is one of my favorite lines from Jerry Maguire. Help me, help you. Jerry Maguire. My wife and I used to say that to each other. Help me, help you. The other famous one is show me the money. Right? Help me, help you. Help me, help you. Okay, Al-Kulsari says, hi, my name is Baraket. I'm from Kazakhstan, studying in China now. I'm learning English with your course and podcasts. In my opinion, you're the best English teacher in the world. Thank you very much. This is a nice illustration. It's an example of what Matt was saying, how now, because of the internet, we can learn anywhere. It's so great. So from Kazakhstan, living in China, learning English. Right? It's fantastic. Learning how can this person do that? Well, because of the internet. They can listen to native English speakers, myself and any others, even though they're living in China right now. It's fantastic. It's really great. So take advantage of this. It's such a wonderful opportunity we have. Yes, like Fukdin says, I really like the tracking technique. That's what I call the shadowing technique. Same technique. In your pronunciation course, it helps me a lot. Even after I finished all the lessons, I still practice every day. I do listen and repeat and then tracking. Yes, it's great. And for some of you, pronunciation is extra important. What do I mean? It means that if the pronunciation is very far from English, then pronunciation is quite important. So for again, like a Spanish speaker speaking English, yes, some English sounds are difficult for Spanish speakers, but generally it's not that difficult, right? Or, a German speaker or someone like that. It's closer to English. The pronunciation's closer. It's not so tough for them. On the other hand, for Vietnamese, for example, English pronunciation can be very, very difficult because English pronunciation is very, very, very different than Vietnamese. It's also different than Thai. It's different than Chinese. And for Japanese too, because English has a lot of sounds that Japanese doesn't have. So for people who have the tonal languages, so Vietnamese and Thai and Chinese, etc., and then also certain other languages like Japanese, the pronunciation is actually very challenging for English. And so you will need to make an extra effort for pronunciation. And if your language is closer to English, a European language, well, then you probably need less effort for pronunciation. And of course, it's the same going the other direction, right? So for me, Spanish pronunciation is much easier than Thai, right? Thai pronunciation is super difficult for me, but Spanish, I know I have an accent if I speak Spanish, but just to speak good enough, well enough to be understood is not so tough for an English speaker. So it definitely depends. Your own native language has a big influence on the pronunciation, and some of you will need to do a lot of work for pronunciation, more than others. Yeah, like here's another example. Elena's, I'm from Moldova. I live in Ireland and I'm learning American English with AJ. So again, the internet, right? Fantastic. And it's not I understand the decision. Ireland's a great place, but the Irish accent can be quite strong. And outside of Ireland, it's less useful. It's less understandable. The American accent is more international. The American and British, those are really, for international use, those would be the two most understood accents for English. Would be standard British, right? That sort of standard BBC, because again, it's on international TV, right? BBC and all of that, movies. Standard British or standard American. So that's what most people can understand because they hear it the most. But an accent like an Irish accent or a Scottish accent, they can be quite nice. They're very interesting, but a lot of people don't know those accents, so they're much harder to understand. Even for me, when I traveled to Ireland, I remember at the airport, I was changing money, and I was talking to the woman, Irish woman, and it was difficult for me to understand her. She had a strong Irish accent, and I had to concentrate a lot to understand what she was saying. So I think overall, choose standard British or standard American is most useful for most people. Yeah, Namaz he says, I'm using your methods for learning Spanish. Still, I'm listening. I think it's a long-term silence too. And that's okay, Namaz. That's great. Enjoy Spanish. I'll go back to Spanish, but I've got to get Japanese first. Ruba's asking about book club. Are you reading a book now, or the last one was Brave New World? We're starting a new book this week. It's called Your Money or Your Life. Your Money or Your Life. We did the introduction last week, but we'll start chapter 1 Saturday. Your Money or Your Life by Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin. It's all about money, how to be financially free. Okay, I've got to get going in a minute. It's baby time again for me. Osama says, when I listened to you the first time 2 years ago, my English in general was not so good. Now I have improved so much. You helped me so much, AJ. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. But of course, you did it. Oh, well, this is an interesting idea. I think, yes. N says, I'm curious, should women choose a female language parent and men a male language parent? Yeah, I mean, maybe. It depends probably on the person. I'd say most, for English, there's not a huge difference in the way. If you choose someone who's kind of very neutral and fairly professional sounding in their speaking, the differences could probably be fairly small. Although, of course, the voice tone would be different. So it might be less of an issue. If you want to choose someone who's, very masculine sounding, then, obviously men, choose men. And women, you could choose someone who's, very feminine sounding. But I think it's probably not too much of an issue. Just try to choose, if you're going to choose an opposite sex, choose someone who has a fairly kind of, what I would say, a kind of a neutral way of speaking. They're not too masculine and rah, or not too feminine and But overall, it probably is a good idea to choose someone of your own sex. Yeah, well, right. So Maya says Japanese also have a strong accent speaking English. Yes. Their mother tongue influences their English. I was struggling to adjust my ear to understand them when I worked at a Japanese company. Yes. And the problem is the way they're taught English in school. They're taught English in a terrible way. And they use the Japanese sound system to teach English. So in the middle schools, usually it starts in middle school, they learn the completely wrong pronunciation for English words. It's terrible. They don't use the Latin, the English alphabet. They don't teach the English sounds. They teach a Japanese pronunciation of the words, which in many cases sounds very strange. And so this creates this strong habit when they're fairly young in middle school and they're first learning the language. Then later they become older and they realize, oh, this pronunciation is terrible. And then they have to work very hard to change that, to improve it, because the school created this terrible pronunciation in them. It's not their fault, really. So that's a big problem for them, is that the schools screw up, really mess up their pronunciation, sadly. Okay, it's time for me to go. So we'll be back again tomorrow with another show. This week sometime I'll do another Aesop's Fable. I know you all like those stories, so we'll do another one this week sometime. Keep your eyes open for emails about the Business English course. We've got our new book starting on Saturday, and then we'll do Jerry Maguire starting in 2 weeks. All right, lots of love to you. As always, join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Commit, don't quit at Effortless English Club. Mwah! See you later. .com.